Welcome back into another episode of the King's Pulse podcast. We are available on all audio platforms, on YouTube as well, if you prefer to have a little bit of a visual and want to leave us some comments about how you're feeling. We are live right after, not live, but we are recording right after the Sacramento Kings 2025-26 season opener, where the Kings blew a 20-point lead and fell 120-116 to the Phoenix Suns on the road. I am Brenden Nunes. Got my guy Chris Watkins here as well. Chris, how you feeling after game one? Very Sacramento Kings fashion.
Yeah, I'm feeling like we're officially back, man. Wow, that was certainly something. I had kind of I was filling in on the radio earlier today, and as we were doing the show, we had on the Mike Brown's Knicks playing the Cavs, and there was a point in the game where the Knicks were up early, 40-27, and by the time I had started the next break, it was a 4-point game, and so I made sure to mention on air like, let's not forget, this is a very real thing in today's NBA. You're down 15, you're up 15. Next thing you know, it's a really close ball game, and it can flip like that. I said it, I preached it. I still wasn't prepared for it. The Kings were up big. I felt like they were doing all the right things to make it feel like this thing was going to be legitimate, like it was going to stick around. Like even if Phoenix did make some push, that they would have enough in the tank to get it to the other side. But alas, here we are, Kings 0-1, and ultimately, I think the story of the night is them just completely collapsing after a really good first quarter defensively, which I guess by the end of the game you can kind of say that was more the outlier of anything else, not necessarily obviously what ended up playing out.
They won the first half, putting up 71 points. It was 71.
They held Phoenix to 19 after the first.
Yeah, which is ridiculous. And then they lose the second half, 66-45. 71 points in the first half, 45 in the second half. I think starting at the beginning of this, though, is the way to go because there's no Domantas Sabonis coming into the night. There's no Keegan Murray, and Isaac Jones is sidelined with an illness. So leaves a tough spot for Doug Christie to be in. You're missing a combined upwards of 20 rebounds between Keegan Murray and Domantas Sabonis, and that was felt tonight. Phoenix had 18 offensive rebounds in this game, which is absolutely ridiculous. You see Dylan Cardwell getting out there, Maxime Reynaud getting out there, Dario Saric played backup 5, but the starting unit, Doug Christie elected to go with Drew Eubanks, who in place of Sabonis, which I don't think caught anybody off guard. Drew kind of leaked that a little bit at practice the other day even, but no surprise. That was the expected way to go. Then, we had a conversation about who would you start in place of Keegan Murray. Doug Christie went with the rookie. I know you were surprised by that. What did you think of the decision to start Neek Clifford, who ended up getting in a little bit of foul trouble, but I thought had an okay game in his 24 minutes?
Yeah, I think it was an okay game, especially considering it was his first NBA action, and I think that's where the surprise comes from, right? I think in the last episode you and I had, we talked specifically about Neek as an option at the 4, and I think we ultimately just decided it was too much too soon, and I think maybe the final result might justify that a little bit. Again, you look at his numbers, it wasn't great. You look at some of those matchups that he had against, I keep getting Dylan Brooks and Devin Booker in my head, confused or mixed up, but Neek Clifford struggled against Devin Booker, which you would expect in that second quarter. I was just really, really surprised because it just felt like it was too early, and I think ultimately his play kind of spoke to that as well. But I more so just think it's kudos, I guess, to Doug Christie for having the confidence and the faith in his rookies to play them as much as he did. I mean, Neek starting, Maxime getting in first 6 minutes of the game, and then you mentioned Dylan Cardwell finishing. Just that there was no way I envisioned that's how today's game was going to play out.
Yeah, a really tough hand for Doug Christie. I don't know what you're supposed to do at that backup center spot. Like Dario Saric is not the answer. You kind of have to go Reynaud, and Max didn't look very good, but same as Neek, like first NBA game. Dylan had moments, I guess, and maybe emerged as the best option. That's why he ended up closing
Yep.
there. But Neek, he did lead the team in rebounding for what it's worth. 8
Wow.
boards. I thought he was aggressive there. 3 of them
Some
being
really good boards
offensive.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 assists, 2 steals, a block in there, but the 4 fouls, I think definitely hurt. That's kind of been his Achilles heel throughout preseason. He's also guarding, James Harden out there or Luka
Right.
Doncic and now Devin Booker tonight. So I think he'll get the hang of that over time, obviously,
Yep.
but it was a little bit of a rocky start for the Kings. Just the very first 4 minutes. I think they had 3 turnovers in that
Yeah.
stretch. Looked a little bit hectic. Looked like the first game of the season for both teams. And for what it's worth, these are not good teams that we saw
Nope.
match up tonight. And I think that was very clear as you were watching it out. But then they get a little bit of a rhythm. Specifically, I would say Phoenix just looked lost offensively. They only have 19 points in that first quarter. And it felt like the Devin Booker show, which is to be
Yeah.
expected when you look at their roster, but it wasn't going great for Book early on. Where were your positives and how they were able to build that early lead? And obviously Zach really takes it over in the second.
Yeah, no, I think it was just the defense in general in that first quarter, more specifically in the first quarter. You saw early on Zach LaVine very active defensively, forced that travel on Devin Booker, if you'll remember all the way back to the first quarter. Drew Eubanks, some legitimate rim protection, 2 blocks in that first quarter. I think he ended up with 3 of them. So really it was just the defensive activity, and you, for the first time, kind of felt like you saw defense leading to offense, something that we've heard about but never actually seen here in Sacramento. And so it just kind of seemed like things were clicking. How much of that was Phoenix not having a good offensive system, especially with Devin Booker out of the game? How much of it was the Kings actually committing to the defensive end? I don't know. I think at the very least, not to get ahead of ourselves, but I on the defensive front, I think we definitely saw nuggets of real improvement in some real defensive moments. Like Dennis Schroeder in that fourth quarter and getting the 8-second violation on Devin Booker, and just countless other moments where it felt like defensively there were small, tiny breakthroughs. That's an overall positive, but I think again, when you look at the totality of the game, it's kind of hard to point to defense as an overall positive, but I kind of think relatively for where we're at, it felt like the defense in general, but more specifically in that first quarter when things were going well, really did shine through.
I'm curious to track Zach's on-ball defense throughout the year. One thing he
Mm-hmm.
mentioned in leading into this throughout preseason training camp that he actually feels like he's a pretty underrated defender. He didn't use the word underrated, but I guess overlooked and unfairly labeled as a bad defender.
Mm.
He himself mentioned specifically on ball. Like, I have the athletic tools
Yeah.
there. And I think you saw the compete tonight. I think that could be some real progress for him throughout the course of this year. It's off ball stuff where, he admits he's going to ball watch a little bit sometimes and get lost with things like that. But I thought he did okay. But one of the things you mentioned there, like the defense turning to offense, I thought that was the key, right? It's being able to get out in transition simplifies the game so much for everybody. But this Kings team really needs that because their half court offense kind of clunky. Like, they don't have
Hmm.
good spacing out there. You look at the starting unit, even. Damn, Zach went 2 of 10 from 3 tonight. I don't think I quite
Did he
realized
really?
that.
Wow.
Yeah, holy crap. But Drew Eubanks not shooting. Like, I mean, he will
None.
take open
Yeah.
threes, but that's not
Right.
really, nobody's worried about that on the other end. You're not worried about DeMar DeRozan shooting. You're not
No.
worried about Dennis Schroeder shooting if you're
No.
Phoenix. And you're probably not really worried about Nate Clifford shooting right now. He still needs
Not
to
right
prove
now.
it. So your only shooter in the starting lineup is Zach LaVine.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also the guy that you want with the ball in his hands. So when Zach gets the ball, everybody else is collapsing the paint, right? And I think it's just an easy thing to defend when it's the Kings half court offense. They become ISO heavy. And I think that's what we saw happen in that second half where the collapse started, is that they weren't able to get stops. And all of a sudden they are stuck playing half court game. And that didn't look very smooth for them. Like, DeMar had moments of
Yeah.
really slick spin moves that were clean as
Man.
hell and finishing. A little jarring with Dylan Brooks. I want to say that there was a time last year where DeMar was very blunt and saying like, "Yeah, I just do not like that guy." You can see it on the court. They got into it last year when Dylan was over there in Houston, but only 4 of 9 from the free throw line for DeMar today. The last time he missed five
Mm,
free throws was in January of 2022. It's the last time he missed free throws in a game. Kings as a whole, 13 of 29 from the free throw, or 13 of 23, excuse me, from the free throw line. You missed 10 of them in a 4-point game. That's the difference right there. The offensive
yeah.
rebounds that were allowed, we mentioned, that really felt like the difference. But I thought defensively, it helps that Phoenix just got rolling. They couldn't hit shit in the first half, and then Royce O'Neal catches fire,
Yeah.
right? You see Grayson Allen start to knock down
Grayson
some
Allen,
shots,
right.
and guys that were going to hit shots eventually, but it felt like once they couldn't get stops, the half court offense for Sacramento in that second half was just kind of ugly.
Yeah, I don't know how much of it you noticed, but I kind of saw, and it started with DeMar, but to your point, earlier point, it was going well when DeMar was doing it. A lot of mismatch hunting, a lot of specifically calling Gillespie. It really looked like they specifically kind of singled him out as a guy who it didn't matter what the situation was. If in the half court you kind of got him switched onto you, you saw DeMar take him one time. That's the guy that Russell Westbrook, almost immediately after DeMar hits a turnaround jumper, Russ kind of in a oh yeah, hey, I can do that too, or that looks fun. The very next possession does the same thing. Mouse in the House does take Colin Gillespie down to the paint and almost gets an and one, but yeah, it kind of felt like that's where the offense started to go bad. Is and it could be as simple as making or missing shots, but hunting that mismatch and just not really taking advantage of it can lead to what appears to be heavy isolation ball, lack of ball movement, when in actuality it is those things, but it is part of the game plan. It just didn't end up going in their favor. So I do wonder how much of that kind of and then spirals into, okay, well, those ISO possessions end up being 3 or 4 in a row, and then you kind of lose all momentum. It did feel like, especially in that third quarter, I would have, hindsight being 2020, I would have liked to see Malik enter the rotation a little bit earlier. He really, I mean, he felt like he couldn't miss in that first half. And then again, in that third quarter, it kind of felt like the offense especially got really, really stagnant. I just would have liked to kind of see him enter the fray there. But overall, yeah, I think if this offense isn't going to hit shots, we've collectively seen throughout the years, and we just know with this unit, they're probably really going to struggle to win games. I ultimately agree with you, though. Free throws cost them the game. I think even with everything we've said about the defensive struggles post first quarter, I think they played good enough defense. They had enough good defensive moments, even down the stretch. Again, the Schroeder 8-second violation. I think they played good enough to win the game. It's just when you leave 10 points on the free throw line like that, you kind of don't deserve to win.
It felt like Dylan Cardwell's miss should have counted for 2.
Oh
Like maybe take a
man,
point away from the Kings for that one. It was gross. And I will say, I mean, we've seen Dylan practice these shots in the Kings training facility, and that's kind of what happens
that's what you
sometimes.
see. Yep.
It's a credit to him because, I have some practice footage where I'm like, man, this looks real bad. He's working on these jumpers. He's
Yeah.
working on baby hooks in front of us the other day.
Yep.
They're kind of all bricks, to be honest, but he's doing it after every single practice. Like he is out there, he's working on it. Could get there over time, but right now, not much of an offensive game there for him. There's a lot of directions we could go. Is there
Sure.
something you want to start with? Keon's minutes, Keon's lack of minutes, I guess. That, of course, speaking of being back, we're right back at it. Everybody's pissed that Keon didn't play enough. There's Westbrook's impact, the rookie bigs. Where do you want to go from here?
I kind of want to start with the big numbers, like the big problem numbers. I guess specifically, we kind of already touched on free throws. That's like just in general something that can lose you games. Offensive rebounds as well, just getting absolutely murdered there. We touched on that a little bit with Keegan and Domas, with the Kings missing essentially 20 rebounds a game there. But also the threes. It's something that I heard them talk about a little bit on the postgame show. Forget the fact that they maybe didn't shoot the best percentage from three. They just straight up didn't take enough, and I don't know where that gets fixed unless Keegan Murray is going to come in and take 10 to 12 threes a game. I just want to get the official number here. They finished 9 of 24 from three. 24 just isn't enough. I mean, we've talked about in the past this team putting up 40 to 50 threes in a game. To be pretty much half of that Kudos to them. It's again, they got bucket getters. The ability to get 116 points while only hitting 9 threes is pretty impressive, but they just have to have more volume, and of course they have to make it at some point, but they just straight up have to get more volume from three. And Neek takes none today. Levine takes 10. You mentioned that earlier. Schroeder takes 4. Malik took 4. Keon takes 2 with his minutes, but I just don't really know where those extra, what would it be, 16 threes. I don't know where those would come from.
24. I didn't realize it was that low. That's a great point. 24 was the lowest amount of threes they attempted in a game last year as well.
Wow.
It happened on 2 different occasions.
Game one.
Yep. February and March, they both had, 24 attempts. They won one of those games and lost the other. But yeah, I mean, to your question of where do they come from, like Neek for sure, I think could get some threes up in the flow of all of it. DeMar, it felt like Russ hesitated on one from the corner a little bit, I guess, but I don't. And then he ended up.
Is that where you want yours coming from?
Yeah. I mean, not really. 42% from the corner.
Even then, he was 0 of 2.
Yeah. And those were not pretty. So I don't really know where they come from. Like we talked at the beginning, the spacing problem that I think this team has, it's like Keegan. Keegan is where those really come from. And some of these other guys getting more up. I think Malik could have shot more. Keon, if he got a little bit more burn, probably could have put more on there too. But definitely a number that I could see why they want to get that higher, obviously. 13 turnovers didn't help in this one either. It felt like most of those were in the first half, actually, and allowed Phoenix to stay alive, at least to an extent, close enough within punching range there. But I mean, a tough one overall offensively in that second half. You put up, again, 71 in the first half, including a 42-point second quarter and 21 in the third, 24 in the fourth, while Phoenix had 30 plus in each of the final 3 quarters. So even that second quarter where it's, again, Sacramento puts up 42, Phoenix had 35. Like if you just do a better job of limiting turnovers, the offensive glass, then, you might be going into halftime with I think it was a 17-point lead. It might be 25, and that makes the difference right there. So a tough one there for sure.
Yeah, no, it's attention to detail. Exactly what you're saying. Like it's the run happening at the end of the third quarter when you're kind of letting off a little bit. To your point about even the second quarter, the Kings were shooting insane. I think they were above 60% at halftime shooting from the field. And yeah, to your point, we talk about it in the inverse actually, where it's, hey, Kings aren't making their shots. You can't let that affect your defense. Well, the same is true when you are making shots, right? Like that doesn't mean that you can just let whatever happen on the offensive end. You score 42 points. That's a prime opportunity to allow the opponent to drop 20. And then, like you said, the game is completely over at that point. If you outscore an opponent by, 15 to 20 points in a quarter, it's curtains, and putting up 40 definitely gives you a great opportunity to have a quarter like that after you had just had a really great first quarter. So as much as, I did mention that there's comebacks that happen all the time, that feels like insurmountable of a lead here if the Kings really could have just capitalized on the work that they had already done in the first. This game was for the taking at the end of the first half, to your point. If they just, as crazy as it is, I know they put up 71, but, if you would have locked up on the defensive end just a little bit more there, not let Phoenix get into a rhythm, you probably could have put them down with like 5 minutes in the third quarter, as long as you kept that lead within, 20 to 25 points.
I feel a sneeze coming, and it is totally throwing off my vibe right now. But I want to talk about the Russell Westbrook experience.
Oh, man.
19 minutes, 2 of 8 from the field, 0 of 2 from 3, 6 points, 6 rebounds was big in this one. The Kings needed it for sure. Yeah. They needed more than that. They got 1 assist from Russ in there, 2 turnovers. Felt like there were more, to be honest.
Yeah.
And a very Russell Westbrook sequence of stealing the ball or turning the ball over and then having a chase down block on the other end. I'm like, wow, we just got the full experience in the first like 5 minutes of him being out there. It felt like a really weird travel. And then he tells a fan to shush right after. I'm like, this is all Russell Westbrook right now.
Yeah.
I think it also leaks over to Keon playing 13 minutes, right?
Sure.
Because that's where we've talked about like whose minutes is Russ going to take? The answer is Keon. And Devin Carter doesn't see the floor, certain other guys as well. But I just people, hey, they should have played better defense. Defense is what gave it up in the second half. People instantly jump to, well, Keon only played 13 minutes. Do you see that as something that could have helped them more if he was out there for longer stretches?
It could have helped them for sure. I think, funny enough, I would say in this game, it probably would have been at the expense of Neek Clifford. I think that's probably the spot where, again, we saw Neek struggle a little bit on Keon Ellis, but to the other point that we made about Neek, he did a great job rebounding, led the team in rebounding tonight. And so, I could maybe understand where Doug could have thought to give the rookie more minutes. Even then, Neek plays 23. Which isn't a ton. Like that's probably how much I would expect him to play all season long, if not even a little more. To me, I never really felt like, oh man, Russ is out there and so Keon isn't. Not to single out the rookie as him having a bad performance or anything, but to me, if you were going to take anybody out for Keon, it probably would have been Neek, just because DeMar brought what he was still going offensively. He couldn't miss, honestly, for a large portion of this game. It wasn't going to be Zach LaVine that gets taken out. He was pretty much your only offense. And I thought Schroeder was playing well both offensively and defensively. So I kind of felt like it more would have been at the expense of Neek, which I would have been okay with. Again, it's the conversation we had before. I think it was too much too soon for Neek, but overall, Doug made his decision to start him, and so I have no problem with Doug kind of, I guess you could say, doubling down on that decision.
Yeah, I think rebounds were the worst, their biggest flaw in this game, and Keon doesn't help you there, right? Like the defensive aspect, I really think it's just not finishing possessions or not having size at the rim, and the rotations and help defense sometimes over helping a little bit to overcompensate, and then shooters getting open off of that. I don't think Keon is a player that deserves more than 13 minutes a night, but it's a lot easier said than done, and fitting them in with everybody else that's on this roster and a packed guard rotation. And they also went, what is this? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 deep. Yep. Threw in a little 6-7 in there. The announcers, by the way, like need to stop casually saying 6-7. Like it's absolutely nothing.
There's a 0% chance you're getting Mark Jones to not do anything that is
I heard
semi-culturally relevant.
I heard Richard Jefferson on the Knicks Cavs broadcast be talking about Lonzo Ball, and he's like, Lonzo's one of the 6 or 7 best passers in the league. And I'm like, there's no way. Like, you did not need to say 6 or 7, bro. Like, who's talking about a top 7? Anyways, I don't think that Keon being out there longer would have changed the result here. I think they needed more size. And I could see the argument why people think he deserves more minutes. I'm a big Keon fan. I think that he is great and brings a lot on both sides of the floor. I don't think that he was going to solve anything tonight. A big issue is how much you're relying on youth. The Maxime Reynaud and Dylan Cardwell closing out the game is a problem. And it's not a Doug Christie problem because it was his decision or something. It's a roster problem. Like maybe it should have been Drew Eubanks. I probably would have gone there, but he wasn't stellar. He had 4 rebounds in his 22 minutes. Dylan had 1 rebound in 15 minutes. Holy crap. And that was that offensive rebound. But I just think Max's minutes looked really, really tough.
They did.
Drew specifically. Sides. Yeah, Drew's main thing, and I guess this is where the 4 rebounds came in. He said leading up that I'm mainly taking my guy out of the play, right? I'm boxing out Mark Williams or whoever it may be out there, and the other guys got to.
They didn't even go that big today either. That's the other thing. I know Phoenix. They have, I think, 3 7-footers in the stable. That Malawak. I didn't see him get much run today. Maybe I just didn't notice him, but. Nick Richards only gave him 4 minutes. Mark Williams, obviously, and then what's the Iguodaro or whatever,
Iguodaro.
yeah, he's not a 7-footer or anything like that, but yeah, I wouldn't even say that Phoenix overwhelmed them with size or anything. It was just really, really bad rebounding. And the last point I'll make, and just toss it back to you, 30 second chance points for Phoenix. Really think about 30 of their 120 points were second chance. You're just not going to win. You're not going to win if you're giving a team 30 extra points off of extra opportunities. You're just screwing yourself. Like I don't know if we see. I hope we don't see a number that high on both offensive rebounds or second chance points. I hope we don't see a number that high again this season.
And this is part of the reason Domas is leading the league in rebounds the last couple of years. Why Keegan was necessary for him to become such a better rebounder. They don't have guys that board on this team. Russ is probably the best rebounder on the floor tonight for the Kings, and it's just not going to cut it enough. Russ had 6 boards tonight, but I feel bad for them because it's literally their first game, and we're talking about a second round guy and an undrafted player. But having to rely on Dylan Cardwell, Maxime Reynaud, they tried Dario Saric at the backup 5. You're just kind of in a shit spot. That is a tough thing to have to deal with. And maybe Domas will be back for the home opener. I know his projection's a little bit after that reevaluation, but this is a guy that
not home opener would be Friday. There's no way.
I think Sean Cunningham
they're saying there's a chance
that he thinks there's a chance that Domas could play in that. Sean talked to him a little bit up in Napa for his wine thing and how excited he was for opening night. And I've had a couple of people say, hey, Domas comes back a little early from things and plays through. So I think maybe a chance, and they fucking need him. They absolutely need him out there. Also for the half court offense that we're talking about and how much the flow looks off there. Like Domas ties sort of all that together. Doesn't help the spacing because his 3-point shot hasn't looked great. And maybe that will look better than it did in preseason, but Domas and Keegan do solve a lot of the problems that they had tonight, which I think is a positive. Domas will not be long. Keegan, that's a little bit more of an extensive time. But yeah, I mean, were there things that impressed you about what Dylan was able to do out there, or Max or Dario?
I would say Dylan. If we're gonna say just who maybe exceeded expectations, I think Max. Obviously, the expectations have been so high at points throughout his short tenure already here in Sacramento. I just kind of felt like he especially was going to look really green out there. He's not super physical. As we've talked a ton about how at Stanford he was almost advised, I guess, to not go super hard on the defensive end because he was so needed on offense, and just kind of what that natural, lack of development was going to look like for somebody, especially in their first couple NBA action. So yeah, I think it just looked really rough for Maxime across the board. But Dylan, he gave energy. I think it's a positive, but it's a little bit easier for Dylan, I think, to shine because his role is just way more simplified, right? Like he's just asked to be an energy guy, grab rebounds, be physical, defend the rim, obviously. And I think we saw moments of all of that. He got a really nice block. He was active on the offensive glass. You mentioned he only gets 1 rebound, but there was multiple times where you saw him fighting, trying to get in there, being an athletic big body. I think he's just the one that there were moments where I said, okay, the other team is out there at least thinking about Dylan Cardwell and what he brings on the floor. It just felt like Maxime was being hunted out there. It felt like Dario Saric, I don't remember a single thing that Dario Saric really did out there. And Drew, I mentioned his rim protection at one point, but yeah, besides that, there weren't really any good moments. His offense looks very clunky. His post game looks like
you didn't like the jelly attempt.
I didn't. No, I really didn't. I don't want to say his offense looks elementary because that's pretty disrespectful for somebody in the NBA, but it just looks very stiff. It doesn't look like he doesn't have great footwork, and really you can just kind of tell he's played bigger than a lot of the guys throughout his life. So, it's just there's just not really much there to get excited about. So I would say Dylan showed the most promise, and at the end of the game, I honestly did think, especially with him closing, And with Doug just kind of already showing the precedent of I'm willing to play these guys, it would not surprise me, and I would not argue with Dylan Cardwell starting if Domas isn't going to play on Friday.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's insane that I
It's
agree.
more
Like,
just lack of options, right?
yeah, yeah. Chaos. I guess he kind of earned it tonight. I mean, I might still go
Doesn't mean you're
Drew
going to
to be
play him
able to
40
battle
minutes,
Walker
but yeah.
Kessler. Yeah, for sure. Couple quotes from
Oh, man.
tonight. Shout out Jeremiah Salmonson out there in Phoenix. This is Doug Christie about Keon Ellis. He said, quote, Keon is the ultimate professional and he is always ready to play. In these situations, we have a log jam, so it's going to come down to who's playing. But with his aggressiveness, his ability to knock down shots, and his defensive ability, he's going to be on the floor. He was on the floor for 13 minutes tonight. I think we kind of said how we feel about that. But one thing I'll point out about when I went down to LA for that preseason finale, Keon played great. I believe he was 6 of 9 from three. And I mentioned like that he caught fire. Doug's like, I guess, but he shoots a 40 ball. Like everybody knows that this guy's cash from three. Isaac called him the greatest shooter he's ever played with, which I thought was a little bit funny because they're boys, and I'm sure that that's what that is. But you also have Zach LaVine right there on your team, and I'm like, all right. But all in good fun. And the one thing I wanted to mention is that Doug said that he likes Keon best when he's playing a little bit more black and white, making quick decisions with the ball. Like if you are open, let that thing fly. If not, it sounds like essentially get off of it, and he has a little bit of an off the dribble game. But yeah, an interesting note from Doug. And I get it. I mean, I get the logjam that it is a real thing that they're dealing with, and really factors into adding Russell Westbrook as well. One other quote I have from Jeremiah, Doug Christie on Dylan Cardwell. He said, quote, one of his things is that he can go get rebounds. He didn't do it tonight as he normally does, but he was in there fighting, and his physicality and things like that are what we absolutely love. Yeah, I chuckle a little bit when you go, hey, he's usually a good rebounder, I promise, even though he only had one tonight. But fighting,
he was a +6 tonight. I will mention, not many guys in the positive. DeMar was a +9 for those who care about plus minus. Nika +3 and Dylan Cardwell a +6. Also Russ +2 in his minutes.
Yeah, shout out Russ. And Russ is always talking, man. They when they panned over to him on the exercise bike to start the second half,
it's like a proud mom out there. He's like, you go, baby. You tell him. You tell him.
It was so funny. So funny.
He got nothing for you.
Energy shifter, as Drew Eubanks said. What did you think of the top guys? We had DeRozan with 29, 9, and 6, 2 steals and a block. That's 9 assists for DeRozan. Dennis had 14, 7 assists, 1 board, 2 steals in there. Zach LaVine with a 30 ball, 13 of 24, 16 of those came in the second quarter. We mentioned the 2 of 10 from 3. He also had 1 assist and 2 boards. But I thought those guys actually looked pretty good. A good first showing for Dennis. You mentioned the defense, especially late in the game, giving Booker a little bit of problems. How'd you feel about the performance of their, I guess, top 3 as currently healthy?
No, I'll expand it to 4. I would say that it's really funny because I think I didn't really consider it, but especially if you're just looking at the box score, which is the wrong thing to do. But you could really say that the other guys really let the guys down, to let DeMar, let Zach, let Schroeder, and I would throw Malik in there. I think all those guys gave you exactly what you should expect from them all season long. Dennis Schroeder 14 and 7. That's around where I expect him to be on both of those numbers. 14 points, 7 assists is around what he's expected to do as a starter, and then having some defensive moments, especially in the clutch. I think that's what he's here to do, and that's what I expect from him. Zach LaVine scoring 30. That's what this team needs from him every night. He could probably be more efficient. You point out his 3-point numbers, but I think it was a pretty standard Zach LaVine game. Say the exact same thing for DeMar DeRozan. We've just seen him play that game so many different times throughout this past calendar year. 12 of 17 from the field, and then Malik comes off the bench, 19 points. Like, those guys did exactly what I would want and expect them to do. They just didn't get anything from anybody else, and you can maybe argue they did enough, just, again, didn't get the necessary stops, didn't hit free throws. But I just kind of feel like, they needed somebody else. It's crazy. I don't know how many people you eventually need to win these games, but I think those four guys did exactly what they needed to do. They just didn't get that extra effort, didn't get that extra stop, and didn't hit those couple of easy free throws.
They needed what Royce O'Neal and Grayson Allen gave Phoenix tonight, right?
Yes.
The 3 of 7 from 3 for both of those guys, and 12
Yep.
points for Royce, 18 for Grayson Allen. Royce O'Neal, by the way, has a gorgeous jump shot. Like, it's very quick, and
Yeah.
I don't think I've paid that much attention to Royce O'Neal's jumper form, but I was like, man, that thing is clean, and he gets it off quick. But the Kings needed that. The only thing I would critique, Zach,
They
is
need a Royce O'Neal in general. He's the exact kind
they
of guy
really
who
do.
they should love to have with
Like Jake
Keegan in
LaRavia.
rotation.
Yeah.
Come on.
Very much so. The only thing I would critique Zach on is the two boards. I think that with his athleticism, he can make more of an impact on the defensive glass. And he's a guy that likes to leak out a little bit in transition opportunities, and it makes sense. He's electric, So
Yeah.
that's
He
where I
also
think
had
it
that
can make a
foul
little
on
bit of a
Dylan at
difference.
the end of the game too. That pretty crucial there to not foul Dylan on that three.
Yeah,
You could argue that was kind of the play that sealed it.
for sure. But yeah, with the rebounding, because it wasn't even Phoenix's bigs doing it. Ryan Dunn had 5 offensive rebounds.
That
Devin
dude's
Booker
a freak,
had 2.
man.
He is. He can't shoot, but he's a
Cannot
freak,
shoot to
man.
save his life.
Royce O'Neal, 2 offensive rebounds. Colin Gillespie, 2 offensive rebounds. Like, I do think that Zach could have made a little bit more of an impact there. But overall, I agree with you. And so does that mean it was no problem with the closing lineup? We could debate Dylan Cardwell versus Drew Eubanks, I guess. But I kind of feel like that's splitting hairs. But closing lineup of the 4 that you just talked about, Dennis
Schroeder, Monk, Levine, DeRozan. Yep, 100%.
Yep.
Those guys deserve to close tonight. It would have felt weird if anybody else did. And again, I kind of agree with Dylan Cardwell closing. So, yeah, I don't really know what. Again, and for all those who want to throw Keon Ellis into the conversation, Malik had 13 in the first. He only had 6 in the second. Maybe there's a conversation that he had there with the amount of scores already out there. But yeah, I really didn't once think this is Malik's fault. Also, if Malik would have finished that dunk,
yeah,
would have been
he would have.
Grayson Allen, boy.
It was over
I think it was
Grayson
on
Allen.
Grayson. Yeah,
It was Grayson. Yeah, I didn't take the time to get a still frame, but he cocked that thing back. It is a very Malik dunk.
I thought his chin was above the rim for a second. That thing was crazy.
It was wild, and he was right there. That would have been electric. What do you want to see carry over and vice versa be improved heading into Utah on Friday, which Utah smacked the shit out of the Clippers today, by the way.
They did. Very, very concerning there, especially with their height, too. Walker Kessler, you mentioned, he had 22. Lauri Markkanen, he had 22. Those are 2 7-footers that the Kings just have negative answers for. So hopefully, to your earlier point, Sabonis could give it a go, at least to try and deal with Walker Kessler. The thing that I would like to see stick around for this team, it's kind of tough because it was such a Jekyll and Hyde game. I feel like you did get some good with the bad. It's tough to kind of say what was consistently happening for them throughout the game. I mean, I guess I would just say Malik's spark off the bench, to me, again, felt like really impactful. It felt like, especially again with that first run when things were going well, it did feel like how it's supposed to feel, where, hey, here's a really overwhelming offense or starting performance, and then boom, here comes our sixth man, our second unit, sixth man, to kind of give you that extra second punch. And it really felt like Malik provided that, especially again when he just couldn't miss for a second there in the first half. That would be great. And, if Russell Westbrook could contribute to that, if Keon Ellis could get more minutes, or in general, just 9 points in 12 minutes, I think will serve you every night. Just getting bench production, I guess. Overall, let's see, they finished with 25, 34, 37, I believe, bench points off the quick math.
19
that's
in the league. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fairly solid. I think trying to kind of get near that 40 to 50 number. I think 50 is probably a lot off the bench, but yeah, I think kind of hovering near that 40 number is pretty good for this Kings bench.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think your top guys balling out is what you want to see, and hope carries over. There's certain things they could have cleaned up for sure, but imagine how much worse this could have been if like Zach had an off night. It's really tough to survive those sort of things when you're not getting more production from some of the bench pieces, and maybe like guys like Russ and Keon are the ones that you look at of, hey, maybe they do have a what we were talking about, the Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal sort of impact. And I think that given nights they could do that. But you're right now you're really relying on the stars. So I think seeing them look comfortable was definitely a plus. Easy things to clean up or what we've talked about, like knock down your free throws. I'm sure they're going to be practicing the hell out of that.
Yeah.
But the defensive glass, like Domas coming back solves a lot of this, that and the half court offenses we've talked about. But you just have to make a better effort there, specifically going against Utah with the size that you mentioned that they have. And yeah, they're starting the season 0-1 in dramatic fashion, blowing a 20-point lead. Do you feel any differently about this Kings team after one game? It's very early to ask this question. Was this just, Sacramento Kings basketball sort of as expected?
I mean, I didn't expect when things were going well for it to feel that good. That's what I would say. I don't know what it means. I don't know if it means that, maybe if things do start clicking, things can really, really get going. But for, I don't know, yeah, 20 minutes there, it felt like, holy shit, like, are we going to have to not necessarily reevaluate things, but, you really start thinking about all the pieces and the fact that Sabonis and Murray aren't out there. And granted, it is against a weaker Phoenix team, but these guys look like they had a little bit of something to them. And Russ having a bad, I don't know. It just, I was very unprepared for the amount of potential to feel from this team. And, you can even throw the young guys in there, of course, just not expecting to see them at all. It just makes me a little bit excited for how much development we might see earlier in the year than expected, but also just in general, how much maybe untapped potential there might be with this roster. I'm a little afraid to say that.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. That's a scary statement. But I
Yeah.
feel like that first half, like I also was sitting there for half a sec, like thinking about our tier list, and I'm like, yeah, Phoenix is definitely a level below these guys. I'm like, the talent is just different. I was
Yeah,
like,
no, it is.
having these scorers is making the difference, and for
Yep.
them, it's Devin Booker or nothing. Dylan Brooks was 3 of 11 in the first. He went 9 for 24 tonight, by the way.
Yeah.
I kind of love Dylan Brooks. He takes things too far.
Get the fuck
Don't
out
get
of
me
here.
wrong, and I know that's going to be the common reaction here. I love all the shit stirrers in the league. Don't get me wrong, Dylan is the one that definitely takes it too far, but like, yeah, people are going to like this. I love the Dylan Brooks. I love the
Yeah,
Draymond Greens
you
of the
sure do.
world. I love the shit stirrers, and
Yeah.
again, they take it too far sometimes for sure, but it brings an energy to the game. Him and DeMar going back and forth and getting chippy, like that
It was
shit
pretty
gets me
sick.
going,
It was
man.
pretty sick. Yeah.
DeMar's little stare down after the
It was pretty
fading
sick.
and one that was nasty. So at very least, some positives. It's probably a good first game for them to be able to review, right? Hey, this is
Mm-hmm.
what was working well in that first half. It's clear tape on successful things and things that need to be cleaned up. So we'll see how they're able to take that
Yeah.
into game 2, the first home opener that they are going to have this season, first and only home opener, obviously, that will take place this season. But I think that's pretty much all I got, Chris. Is there other things that you want to touch on here?
I guess kind of to something you just mentioned just sparked something in me watching, especially opening night, that Houston game. And you could throw OKC in there as well. The point you just made about the Kings having the amount of scorers they do, I do think, again, there is potential here where if they can figure out things on the defensive end, there's a lot of Houston Rockets out there that are just heavily depending on Kevin Durant to create offense, Alperen Şengün to create offense, and if you stop or slow down those guys, then they're relying on Amen Thompson to hit threes, on Reed Shepherd to potentially have big nights. So, I don't know. Just again, the first half made me way more positive than I thought I was going to feel for a very long time with this team, and um, they're just again we're game one. All the hope and potential exists in every organization right now, but I don't know, man. I kind of for a second felt like there legitimately is something there that might at least be some form of identity, being offensively minded and just having way more scores than most teams have.
It's a great point. I mean, I think one of my biggest questions coming into the year is what is this team consistently good at? What can they do every single night? And the answer might just be get buckets. Like,
Yeah.
it's not going to be the smoothest thing, but they have guys that can just sauce you up and find a way to put the ball in the basket.
Yep.
So lean into that a little bit. As you said, a lot of positives to take from that first half. And I would say try to hold on to that a little bit more, best that you guys can, because second half was not pretty. But I also think that is a good representation of what I'm expecting for the Sacramento Kings season. Is there's going to be some games where you see the entire first half. There's going to be some games where you see the entire second half,
Right.
and that just might be the up and down nature of what the 25-26 Sacramento Kings will be. So we'll see how it all continues to play out. Again, Friday night, home opener against the Utah Jazz, who maybe are in a pushover. We'll see. I didn't get to really watch their
Yeah.
game against the Clippers tonight, but like we said, took care of business. They have good size. They actually start the season fairly well these last couple of years, even though they've been in the dumpster.
Yes.
So we will see how that all plays out. But that is going to do it for us here on the Kings Pulse podcast, recapping game one. I don't think usually we're going to go deep, super deep dives in an episode
No.
into talking about an entire game and try to go a little bit more big picture, but fitting for game one, as this is our first time seeing this group together, and a lot of positives, a lot of negatives, things for them to review, try to replicate, and try to clean up headed into Friday. So appreciate everybody listening. Again, Kings Pulse podcast available on all major audio listening platforms, also on YouTube as well. Be sure to subscribe wherever you are listening. 5-star review, like, all of the above. Comments are also always appreciated. We will gladly take questions going into next episodes, future episodes, as always. So for myself, Brenden Nunes, and Chris Watkins, appreciate everybody listening, and you will hear from us again in the next couple of days.